All right, manganese, Sprint 25, Fleet 4.53. We're going to be reviewing today, code name manganese. Some cool stuff to show on Endpoint Ops and MDM. So let's get into it. I'm going to hand it over to Sharon and Endpoint Ops for their product features in this release.
Thank you, Luke. We'll start with Rachel and Victor presenting finding hosts with most issues. Take it, Rachel or Victor.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Okay, cool. I'm just gonna show you guys the UI and then Victor can add anything since he was the one who added this to the backend. But just to let you guys know that if you are looking at your host now, this issues count used to just be your failing policies count like this, but now we added critical vulnerabilities count to that. And this column here is now sortable. So if you click on this, it'll put the one with the most issues first, which is my laptop. And if you hover over it, you'll see that we also have our critical vulnerabilities posted here as well. And you can see those data points in the host details page as well. Under issues, you'll have that data under here. So anything you want to add, Victor?
Yeah, a couple of things. I'm gonna share my screen. Thank you, Rachel. Okay, so just kind of to explain how this works. So we got failing policies and vulnerabilities. So failing policies numbers are going to be updated in real time, and critical vulnerabilities numbers are going to be updated once the vulnerabilities job runs. So we can see this real-time update. So these two are failing policies. So if I go to policies, this failing policy, and suppose I just change it, remove macOS platform from there and save it. Then I go back to hosts, and you can see they have been updated. They no longer have a failing policy. I did want to mention something else. And there's an API, a small API change I wanted to show. So, so we used to have a disabled failing policies parameter. So now that has been deprecated in favor of disable issues. So if you run this with disable issues, basically all these counts are going to be populated to 0. We have also added a new order key. As you can see, we can sort by issues. However, if you disable issues and try to sort by them, it's not going to work because you can't sort by something you've disabled. That's all I wanted to cover for this story. And I'm going to go ahead and cover a couple of my other stories. So first is getting an unlock pin when locking a macOS host. So we've added in the API, and only in the API, we added this view pin parameter. So I have a Mac host here running, and I'm going to run this command now to lock it. And I get the unlock pin right away. So if we go back to that host, it is locked now. And now the unlock screen comes up. Anyone remember the pin? Okay.
No.
While it's being unlocked, I'm going to go to the activities. So we see I locked it. And if we go to the actual details of the activity, As you can see, I locked it, and there's an additional parameter in the activity says view pin equals true. So that means we can audit to see who has called this API point and actually viewed the pin. And while I'm at the activity screen, another thing I wanted to mention is you see this created at timestamp. We now have microsecond precision on that timestamp. So that way we can order activities exactly, because what we found is the ordering of activities in the UI was non-deterministic. So sometimes activities will be out of order. So if you're paging through it, you can actually miss an activity. So now these timestamps are microsecond precision, so things should be ordered properly. So just to complete this part of the demo, let's go back to the host that was unlocked. So just for information purposes, I believe it still shows up as locked in Fleet until we actually log in. So only after you log in will the server receive the MDM command response and mark this as unlocked. So now it's unlocked and I can lock it again. All right, this completes the unlock pin story. Next, I will show you that we've added long-term storage for our FleetD base binaries. So FleetD base is our packager that comes without an enroll secret and without the server URL. So currently they're not completely released. So currently at this URL, download testing, fleetdm.com/stable/meta.json, we have this file that has the links to the packages. So these links are not going to be permanent. So this package at this link will always be here. And we have the SHA-256 checksum for it. So now the MDM team in their flows can use these permanent links so that we don't have any race conditions as far as which version we're getting. And an additional point, if we actually know what's in this package, we can go to this URL. There's a file called tough/meta.json, and it will give you some additional details about what versions are in that package. So in addition to creating this infrastructure, there's been some additional updates to this FleetD base flow. Let me draw on the screen. So an additional change, now we're signing the MSI file. So MSI file is signed. And then we added a additional checking after all these files are generated. So we check the checksums, and then we install it on Windows and install it on macOS. So just what that matters for customers is in our documentation, we take the FleetD base from download.fleetdm.com. So the future link will be download.fleetdm.com/stable. So the files at the root are just going to stay as is, and they will not be updated anymore. All the future updates are going to be in the stable directory. And this is just for backward compatibility because we had some things hard-coded in the Fleet server. So to keep the old Fleet servers working, we're just keeping the old files where they were. Okay, so last one is kind of a feature for our demo. So to demo the calendar feature, we sped up the refresh rate of the calendar, and this is only for demoing purposes because in a big environment with 100,000 hosts, this would create an additional load on the Google Calendar, and we would be rate limited. But for our internal environment, we can tweak this to see the calendar refresh quickly. So I'll just play a couple seconds here. So I move back here. I move it back here, and delete it and schedule on Friday. And you see it moved. So we have the demoable calendar, demo-friendly calendar. That concludes for my features. Back to you, Sharon.
Thank you, Victor. And next we'll have, so just to repeat what Victor said about the maintenance frequency update, it's for demo purposes only, or if some customer wants to do it and pay the price of, or if they don't have a lot of users and they can do it, but that is not a recommended for all customer thing. So thank you, Victor.
But
Next,
we do have a story, right, in the upcoming sprint to solve that problem for everyone, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. We do have a story.
Sweet.
Yeah, I just want to see, John, you want to show in the reference docs for how that looks to set that setting?
There's no reference docs, I believe.
Got it. Okay, so it's kind of like a feature flag right now.
It's
I think it would be
hidden,
smart of us to get
Yeah,
the.
it says a feature flag internally for us just for demo purposes because it's
it.
not the way we'd want an end user to go about setting it.
yeah, kind of undocumented feature. Okay, so that's the.
All right, let's progress it quickly then top of the next sprint, guys, so that we're not leaving that undocumented. Thank you for getting it in there. We needed it quickly for a hack, but yeah, let's if we haven't made that a priority yet, that would be great.
Document
Even just
it.
the temporary thing. Yeah.
Cool. I'll follow up with Noah with you to see how we want to document it.
Yeah, the plan is to remove it if we can.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
that's why we
Replace it.
undocumented it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next, if you remember last sprint, we added the ability to enroll iPads and iPhones, and Lucas will just show how we wipe them out. And another feature is getting API token for API only users. Take it, Lucas.
All right. Share my screen. So a lot of these UI, actually all the UI changes were made by Rachel. So Rachel, interrupt me if you want to show something here. As you can see, I have an iPad device here. And in the previous version, we didn't have any actions available for iPhones and iPads. Now we do, and you can transfer, delete them. This is like the same as the other, devices, nothing special. But then we added wipe. So before we wipe, I will explain, because originally we wanted to add lock for iPad and iPhone too. But we found that we need to revisit that approach. So I'm going to show the findings real quick here. Oh, well, so you probably saw, like from Victor's demo for macOS, Fleet will send what's called a device lock command, and it sends with a pin, and this goes with the command with the payload, right? The device will receive that command and will lock the device. And then that's it. Even if the device has no internet connection, the user can unlock the device by entering the PIN, because the PIN was received by the device, right? So this is great. Now we wanted to use the same command. Just we like to reuse functionality, right? So we tried using the same command on an iPhone and iPad, but the problem is that it just locks the screen. You can just enter the passcode and you're back in. So it doesn't work for iPhone and iPad. And then we found that there's a new mode called loss mode for iPhones and iPads, where it's like, I think it's what we want because it allows the admin to lock the device. But when I tested it, so you actually get something like this. Give me a sec. So when you send a command called enable loss mode to a device, you see something like this. And you can show like a custom message here below and like a phone number and so on, but the device is unusable. And yeah, you can turn it off and you turn it back on and then it's on the same state. Now, the problem is if the device has no internet connection, then there's no way to get it back because to disable loss mode, you have to send like another command from fleet MDM called disable loss mode. And again, if you don't have internet connection, which happened to me on the iPhone that I got, because when you turn off the device, the Wi-Fi password is in the keychain, so you can't access the Wi-Fi password. So the only option that the user has to reuse the device is to wipe it, right? And actually, the solution that I used was to insert my SIM card, my personal SIM card on the iPhone, so that it could connect to the Fleet MDM and then disable the loss mode. But again, this is a solution for iPhones. iPads would just be, that wouldn't work on iPads. So we decided to not do this, even if it looks good, because if the user turns off the phone, then the only solution is to wipe it. Again, we can revisit our approaches for locking, but we decided to not do this on this iteration. So you only see wipe. So let's try wipe on this iPad that I have here. And let's see if this actually gets to wipe this iPad. It's pending. It should get. Okay, it's wiped. It's actually getting wiped. All right, and the same thing you can do with ECTL. If you do, I think it's called MDM wipe. All right, let me just do something like MDM get hosts MDM. You have the iPad, and then wipe. Right, it fails as expected because it's already wiped. And I forgot to mention that before wiping the device, that if you do a lock on this device, it will obviously fail because we don't support that at the moment. Yeah, you can see here we can't lock iOS and iOS, just use wipe. All right, I think that's about it on that feature. Yeah, Rachel, do you want to add something to this? We can stop sharing.
You showed everything. Thank you.
All right. Okay, and the next feature I have on my list is it's actually very simple. So currently we have these users called API users that people usually use for automation. But currently you have to create it via the with FleetCTL, right? So you run this command, FleetCTL user create API user, the email, password, and this flag, right? API only. But then you want to get that token because you really cannot log in through the UI because it's an API only user. So we documented this curl command to get the token. So it's basically an extra step that the user has to do. So to prevent, to make things simpler, when you're creating a new API only user, like this with FleetCTL, you'll get the token right away here, and you can use it on automations. You don't need to do any extra stuff. It will only output the token for API only users. If you create a normal user, it shouldn't. Let me just it does that, but it shouldn't. Okay. And then let's just see something else. Okay, didn't. And if I go to the activity settings, it's important to log that the API user, we created a session automatically for this API only user. This is important to log because we want to know that there is a session for this API only user. I think that's about it on my end.
Okay, thank you, Rachel and Lucas. And may I use this opportunity to congratulate Lucas and all Argentinian-based people for their win in soccer game yesterday over Canada 2-0. And I'm looking forward to them. I hope there's a hockey league together. So maybe we'll have a hockey game with Argentina. Thank you, Lucas and Mitch. Next, we have team presenting a few features, sofa tables, and custom Linux kernel and others. Team, take it.
Let's see. Sorry, I got so distracted about Argentinian hockey. So let me move this aside. So last release, we added a Mac admins table for Sofa feed, which is Apple update feed. What happened soon after that? We got some news from the maintainers of both the Sofa extension as well as the Sofa maintainer saying we're all of a sudden they were getting hammered with a lot of requests. And so after much discussion, we decided to add a user agent. Oh, spoiler alert over there. And so just going to do this real quick. This is on dog food. And the sofa tables, this is one of them. What it does is it makes a request out to the sofa feed, and you can override where that feed is coming from with the string right here. So I'm going to do that. I have a server. I just have a basic server running on my running locally, and so I can run this on my Mac. Mac Tim. And this will fail because this is not a Sofa server, but it should give us enough information for what we need here. Padding. That is taking time. There we go. So now we report a Fleet D user agent. So now Sofa maintainers can now see where the traffic is coming from. We were not convinced it was all coming from Fleet as we release it, but we'll see. Let's see. Next up is one I've been kind of looking forward to for a while now in vulnerability land. This is kind of a really common pattern. We demoed this a little bit a while back, many sprints ago, as a problem, but we had to do some legwork up front to enable this feature. Thank you to Jacob for that, for pulling in that dependency. I see this a lot in Adobe updates, and we're not reporting on a certain pattern. So Adobe Animate, I think, is my demo here. I'm actually going to have CVE, so we don't have to search for it. So we look up this CVE. Here we go. So this was not reporting. It is now reporting. And if I visit the NVD page, this is the rule set. So this is kind of a newer pattern, roughly. So we have an app that has to be on a certain amount of OSs. So now this works, and we should get a lot more vulnerable, lot more matches on this pattern. I think when we originally did research, it was around like 40,000 CVEs that had this pattern, so quite a bit. Next up, last but not least, I'm going to go back into software. I'm going to look up Linux. Actually, I'm going to look up Linux image. So last release, we released kernel detection, kernel vulnerability detection. And we searched our oval feeds. The problem we had a customer that was using a custom kernel. And so I have so we decided, kind of collaborating with this customer, that we're not going to use our oval feed because oval feed is very opinionated around what variant. Oops, I'm trying to highlight that. This is a generic variant. There's about 50 variants in the oval feed. If it's an unknown variant, it's called a custom variant, which is what this customer is using. And as you see, even though we have two of the same kernels here, this is a known variant, so it's reporting on that many vulnerabilities, and this is looking at NVD. So I'll just pick one. Let's just pick one at random. Pattern in NVD looks like this. So we're now matching custom kernels against in NVD. And I think that's all I had for feature work. Back to Sharon.
Any questions for team? No, then that concludes the feature work. And back to you, Luke.
Awesome. Great work, Endpoint Ops. Thank you, as always. And now over to George and MDM.
Alrighty, we've got a couple small but still important features coming out of MDM this sprint. Getting us started off with Dante.
Hey everyone, I'm just going to share my screen 1 second. So this first feature is going to be very convenient for debugging and customer support, actually. So what you can do now is, instead of having to do carving for logs, what you'll be able to do is just query from the fleet d_logs table, and it will return all of the logs from fleet D right in your window. And you can filter them. You can see it goes back to everything that's been logged since fleet D started. So it's all just stored in memory and resets when you restart the client. But you can also do things like filter by the error column. If you want to say get only errors where log entries where the errors are present, so you could do error not equal empty. And you can, of course, run this aggregated on a ton of machines, so you can see all the errors that are in every single machine in your team. That's it.
Alrighty, thank you. And we have a couple updates from Roberto.
Hello. So I have two updates, and I'm going to demo both at the same time because they're kind of related. But the first one is for manual enrollments, after the user enrolls, we are not now going to send a command to install fleetd. So you see in this virtual machine, I don't have fleetd installed. I'm manually enrolling for the first time. And this might take a minute, but we can see in a second, we are going to include the commands to install fleetd and to install other profiles. Until that happens, yeah, that's there. So we already have those two to install the profiles, and the actual feature, which is fleetd, will come on soon. But until this happens, let me show you the other feature that it's related. And now it's all the certificates we are creating are named Fleet. They used to be called FleetDM. So to be consistent with the brand here, for example, the SCEP certificate, the use certificate is the same we use for signing. If you look in the keychain, the SCEP certificates that we issue for each device also used to be called FleetDM, and now are called Fleet. So overall, rehold the certificates there. Let's see once more. Yeah, we sent a command, install enterprise application, and it was acknowledged by the host. It might take a bit to install to safely, but yeah, we queued the command. So that's it.
Alrighty, and then we have Sarah with another update.
Well, yeah, this is a quick one. We have demoed this feature before, but we're now offering the custom end user email option for Linux computers, both DEB and RPM distributions. So if when you build the fleet control package, you set the end user email flag, you can have a custom email appear for that device. That's what this will look like in the UI.
Awesome, thank you. And that's it for MDM for new features. Back to you, Luke.
Great. Thank you, MDM. We've got a big list of bug fixes and improvements that we're excited about as well. So that was a big push this sprint. Hand it back over to Endpoint Ops for bug fixes and improvements.
Thank you, Luke. It's a long list, so reminding everyone, try to be concise with the descriptions. Victor, how about you start?
Thank you, Sharon. So first bug has to do with the kind of a regression that we saw on the host details page, where software was not showing up until the vulnerability job runs, and it was also not in real time. So a couple things to note here. So first, just a functionality change. Software is now fetched when I click this software tab. And when the host details page is fetched, over here you see there's a new flag called exclude software equals true. So when because we're now using a different API endpoint to fetch the software. So I will go ahead and click on this, and you see it happens. So now I'm going to demo that the update is in real time. So I'm going to go to my, not really in real time, I have to refresh. I'm going to remove some software here. So I remove some software. It actually removed 2 pieces of software. And if I refresh, so what you'll see is not only does the host refresh, but still waiting. Not only does the host, but you see the page flash, so software got refreshed as well. That's all for that bug. Now moving on to a different bug. So there was a small bug in GitOps where if we left the secrets blank, they were not being cleared. So now when using GitOps, if the secrets are blank, they're going to be cleared. So let's go to this team. New team. It has a secret. So then if I run that GitOps and go back to that team, reload. So now there's no secret. So now if a user does not specify a secret in GitOps, that team or global entity will not have a secret. Next bug, I just wanted to show it. So we have an issue where if you go to a CVE, sometimes you see 2 of the same hosts. And the reason this happens is because one OS is installed on Intel and the other OS is installed on ARM. But we actually combine the counts back here. So the fix is going to be just basically if all these values are the same, if the result inversion is the same and the name of the OS is the same, we're just going to get rid of the duplicate. And the last bug, I already kind of showed it during the demo. It is that extra time precision for the activity. And I just want to point out as a recommendation that when we create our timestamps, to use a higher precision in timestamps going forward, because the default is 1 second precision, and in many cases it's like not good enough. So my recommendation is just to use microsecond precision, which means specifying this parentheses 6 when we're creating types, when we're creating this type in the database. That's it for me. Back to you, Sharon.
Thank you. And Rachel is next.
All right, hey everybody. We're gonna travel to front end land together. So I have a bunch of bugs. I'm going to try to keep it short. Just some things that we updated. For example, the software empty states both on the software page and on the host details page has new text to it. So it should feel a lot cleaner for the user to be looking at empty states, whether they are filtered empty states or if they're like the initial empty state, as if they had no software to begin with. We've been cleaning up a lot of like little styling bugs. So if you go to a query and you see the compatible checker, this is nice and clean now using some flex boxes and making sure that all the padding is not going to be easily breakable, which is good. Another thing that we added was for our software vulnerabilities. So anywhere you see a vulnerability table, which I believe we have 4 throughout the UI. Now, when you go over your probability of exploit, we let our users, is it this one or this one? Sorry, severity. We let our users know that we are using the common vulnerability scoring system of 3.x because there's a newer version, which is 4.0 that we are not using. So we just want to let our users know that we're using 3.x. So anywhere you see a vulnerability table, you should be able to see that update. So here's a vulnerable software, for example. And yeah, so it's there. Cool. Other things, we mostly have server-side rendering for all of our tables, but a few of them are client-side. For example, like this table. So changing the severity. This is client-side. We're not making another API call. And our accounts, we're flashing, most importantly for the ones that had like filters on them. Like our queries one is still client side, just old legacy code. So we change this to now make it so this count doesn't flash the original all queries number on it, which is nice and clean. This next one is a customer request that we were having issues with our data tables. And specifically, they were using dot notation to create their columns just because they just wanted the dot in it. And it was rendering our tables funky because for our table library, that actually creates like a new column for it. So it was actually a one-line fix to make it so we can use dot notation in our column names. So
I'm so excited about
yeah.
this.
We danced around it for a little bit and it turned out it was just literally just a one-liner to change something from a string variable to a function returning a string. So it's quite nice. What else? Oh, this one is one of this bug, quote unquote, something that I believe Mike McNeil flagged. Sorry, I'm just gonna hide IPs real quick for policies. Here we go. So we had this, we recently changed this wonderfully to have the no's on top and the yeses on bottom because most people want to see their failing policies first. But while I was in this, we changed this to be sortable, but then I also found bugs with the view all host link going to the wrong team. So if I was on no team to get to here and then I clicked on this, it would switch to all teams. Now it preserves the teams. And then some other little ones like, oh, this is actually clickable. So if you hold down your mouse, it's purple. But if you're in your My Device page, let me make sure I'm not sharing my IP address real quick. It's not clickable, obviously, because the end user doesn't have the Fleet UI. So we were showing like a little clickable cursor, and when you clicked on it, it was turning purple. So it looks like it's clickable, but it's not. Only this row is clickable because this has the resolution. So once again, just going through the UI, you end up seeing lots of little bugs that are related. And since I was on call, I actually had a lot of time to work on related bugs, which was quite nice. Thank you to like Kathy and Brock and Grant for all their hard work with customers. It makes being all a lot easier for the developer to just go back to developing some stuff. So it's kind of cool. All right, so let me just wrap this up real quick. Other random things. I know this was a really ugly bug. If you went to add hosts, it had the wrong fonts in here. That was a recent regression that was now fixed. And then another one is, oh, this is the last one I'll show you guys. Sorry, I hope this is not too boring. And sorry, Marco app organization. So this is my mixed role guy, and basically what was happening was if you went to run a query and you added a query and we went to live query, it was showing a no teams option, which this user isn't a global user, so they shouldn't have access to that no teams role. And then while I'm in here, I'm going to preview this other bug that ended up being a bunch of bugs. It's in review right now, so it will either be in for this release or in next release. But I'm currently on main, so you can actually see a bunch of these bugs. And I'll just show it to you guys from the other perspective, like, well, what do these bugs look like before they're fixed? So here I am a admin for team admin, maintainer for team maintainer, observer for team observer, observer plus for team observer plus. And basically I saw a lot of bugs where if I was on team admin and I went to go run a query, for example, this query, I was able to click on observer team, but then if I hit run, I get this error and I'm not even allowed to run anything. And it's because I clicked on a team that I'm also an observer on, even though I'm an admin on this team, I shouldn't be able to run queries on hosts that are on this team because I shouldn't have access to that. So just really ugly stuff like that. Other ugly bugs I found was like if I'm an observer, I shouldn't be able to delete queries, but I still have access to this delete button. So I spent a lot of time this week actually just like going through a bunch of this stuff and being like, well, what is ugly about things? Like if I'm a maintainer and I go to a specific query and I go to edit query, we can't save, but we can save as new. But like Rachel worked with me and decided like shouldn't be editable for maintainers if they cannot save it. So there's all sorts of bugs that ended up being in here. And if you want to really know more about all the bugs that I found, I'm not going to go over all of them, but I left a video in the initial issue here at the bottom of it. So yeah, so welcome to front end land. I've been stuck in it for a long time. So it's kind of nice to have the time to like click around and, you know, chaos engineer as a developer. So
Thank you, Rachel. And next we have a team with solving a false positive.
I hope this doesn't get too ranty. The fix is relatively easy here, but you know, I feel like we're kind of dealing with death by a thousand paper cuts with NVD data because it just varies. And so here, for example, here is a commonly written VS Code CPE. And so here you have, you see it's a Python extension and it's running on VS Code. It's an extension, great. Somebody decided, hey, let's reverse it just for fun. And so we get some false positives because we think this is a vulnerability on VS Code itself. And so they reversed these two fields. Again, this wasn't a widely used pattern, so it was kind of easy to skip these. But I don't know, maybe incoming feature requests, engineering initiated feature requests, maybe kind of crowdsource some of this stuff or make it easier to detect. So that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. And Lucas.
All right. Share my screen. So give me a second for the list of bugs. So I'll go quickly over them. All right, improve our message when host enroll with duplicate identifiers. Many people here have probably heard of these duplicate UIDs, hardware identifiers, and it happens in real world because basically because VMs, right? Sometimes VMs are cloned, and then it contains some, like they have multiple VMs have the same hardware identifier, and that causes issues in Fleet. We're not solving that currently, but we're gonna make it easy for administrators to know that there is an issue, right? So what I will do to demo this is, so I have this computer here. I have this Mac right here, and then what I'll do is stop orbit. So if I stop orbit, and then I delete these files. So this is just for demo purposes. This is as if I'm cloning this machine and running fleetd on this new clone of the machine because I deleted the databases. And this is a good way to demo this. So I now start the orbit again, sorry, fleetd again. And now we will see stuff on the fleet logs that will tell you orbit host with duplicate identifier was enrolled in fleet and will override existing data, host data. So right now, if this happens that you have two devices using the same hardware identifier, they will start competing for the host in fleet. But now we will log some information. This will actually log pretty often in the fleet logs, so administrators will know what to do, or at least will know what devices are causing these issues. Upgrade the latest version of Post Query. Okay, so the latest version of Post Query is 5.12.2. This one is simple. Let me just show. This is an improvement, no bug here. So I think Victor added this thing here on 5.12.1, this flag. And you can now use it in Fleet. If you go to agent options, you can set them here. Like if you set an invalid flag, so invalid flag, something, we actually have some validation to prevent users from breaking their Fleet, right? You'll say, okay, this is not supported. So every time there's a new flag in Fleet, we need to add it to, sorry, every time there's a new flag in Post Query, we need to add it to Fleet. So you can set stuff like here or here, and it should save now. And allow you to set those flags through Fleet. So you don't need to go to the device and edit those flags. All right, that's it. Next. All right, so this issue was reported by a user running on CentOS like systems. We usually recommend people to use the auto update system of fleetd. So you deploy fleetd once and you forget about it because fleetd will auto update. You need to install the packages every time there's a new upgrade. But some users want this approach, right? So I'll show this here. Imagine you are on CentOS. So this is a CentOS 7 machine. And you install fleetd 120 a sec. 125, right? So fleetd 125, we install that. And the bug was that this user wanted to upgrade to 126. They were actually generating the packages themselves by using the update flag. Actually, they were using a repository, but it's just the same thing. And this was failing, was actually installing. Is it upgrade? Was actually installing, but Fleet was actually not running after this. So we now fix that. If you go to status orbit, you'll see now this running. So this is fixed. Now this is supported. Users can upgrade, RPMs by running, basically we support that flow. Next bug, okay, pull reports. So this is something we want to provide some functionality for customers. Currently, query reports are, I think we go to dog food real quick, and you have a big query. This is actually where we don't have a whole lot of results here, but you can get up to 1,000 results. But that's hard coded. You can modify that. But we now added a way to change that. We should tell customers to use this with care, because if you set it to infinite or something big, you can break your deployment. So again, you can change this. The default is either 0 or 1,000, and you can change this. This setting is called for report cap, and you can set it to 2,000 here. And apply that, and now I think I have a query here where I'm collecting more. If I go to query 2,000, you get up to 2,000 results, and again, you can increase this even more and get more results. Again, we have to use this with care, because if you have a deployment with many 100,000 of devices, this can get very, you can have a lot of DB issues with this setting. Lastly, okay, dog food it should be, there's no code changes, but now we have via GitHub, we added a new team called iPhones, and we just have one iPhone, which is the one we bought for Fleet. And we're gonna start dog fooding. So if you have iPhones and you want to enroll to dog food, we added a bunch of profiles to dog food, and actually DDM profile works on these devices. And again, I invite everyone, like if you have a spare phone there and you want to enroll, you can do that. It doesn't need to be in ABM. You can enroll manually on the phone. So yeah. And again, we're gonna be adding more features to iPhones. Because for example, right now you cannot actually see what profiles are being installed, even if the data is available on the API. But again, we're adding that soon. Right, that's about it.
Thank you, Lucas. And last for Endpoint team, we have Jacob presenting some fixes and an interesting research on old agents. Thank you, Jacob.
Hey, everybody. So, share my screen here. Firstly, we had another situation where we were getting just a general 500 error for a situation where it's not exactly accurate. So if you look here, foreshadow to feature coming next sprint. But if you look, we have apples is team 1, oranges is team 2. And if we're gonna try to delete a team policy for a non-existent team. That's team 3, which doesn't exist. And we get a 404, team 3 not found. And this fix is kind of in line with a pattern of improvements we've been making with our error handling that kind of prioritizes the most important issue first. So similarly, if we make a request that has no body and expects a body, we get a bad request that was previously unauthorized. So that's a pattern of improvement we've been making. Secondly, yes, so we had a customer chat, if you like, who they have an impressive spread of versions of OS query, vanilla OS query, Fleet D with different versions of Orbit, etc. And they are also running an old version of Fleet, and for that reason, they're hesitant to upgrade because they're not sure how exactly it's going to go with all their many different versions of the agent. So they wanted us to test out a whole bunch of combinations of OS query and Fleet D. I don't know why it was signed out. I think that was a lie. Very mysterious. So yeah, we did a bunch of testing of different Orbit versions, different vanilla OS query versions, different Fleet OS query versions within Fleet D on different operating systems, and we got our customer success folks this information that they can use to help them reassure our customer of well, we're not really assure them of anything, but they have this information that we're giving them about our testing of these different versions of different agents on different operating systems, and hopefully that will help them be successful using Fleet in their particular circumstance. And then lastly here, this was an issue that was no one was able to consistently reproduce basically we have tooltips in various places right there. So that's a tooltip, and that's Rachel's work. She talked us about showing us the critical vulnerabilities, Rachel and Victor, excuse me. And in weird situations, that would kind of stick. The tooltip wouldn't go away when we moved our mouse away from it. So again, not really able to consistently reproduce, but what I did here was I updated the places where folks did see it from the old version of React Tooltip, which is the library we use for that, to the newer wrapper, tooltip wrapper we've been using that wraps the updated version of that third-party library and just has some more dynamic behavior and generally handles this kind of thing better. So we expect that should prevent it from happening and keep our eyes on it. That's it.
Thank you, Jacob. And Luke, back to you. That concludes the Endpoint team.
Great, thank you. That's an impressive list of bug fixes and improvements going on with this release. Over to MDM for their bug fixes and improvements. George?
Awesome. Getting us started off today is Dante again.
Hello. I actually can't live demo this bug, I realized, because since I've been working on ARM issues, my TUF server no longer serves AMD 64 images. But essentially the crux of the issue was Victor had discovered that on Windows Server 2016, the MDM bridge table was causing issues. So now we selectively load that table based on whether or not the Windows is a server or not. So the plugin will not be loaded. The query that we use to fetch information from the server will detect that the table is not present, and then it won't run the broken query, which will stop the Fleet D from going into a reboot loop. that's pretty much it.
Awesome, thank you. And then Gabe wasn't able to make it today. There are a couple issues tied to his. But if anybody has any questions over those, please let me know. Otherwise, on to Haziel.
Hey, y'all. Share screen. Okay, cool. So first off, we've got this guy. Yeah, thanks to the team for digging into this with me. We figured out that this issue, which basically like we had a customer who was trying to just upload a profile, I believe for Mac OS. Yeah, for Mac OS. And they were just seeing this really weird behavior where the config seemed to work, but then we'd have this like unexpected character error, which was strange because they double checked the actual like file itself and it was fine. And so we were able to figure out that because of the settings in the database, the column in which the actual like bytes of the profile were stored capped out at 65K. But because of the settings that the database had, it was just truncating the file at 65K. So that's why this unexpected character piece would show up when it would end up on the host, like be, you know, half of the file or whatever, and then it would crap out. So now if we go over here to upload a profile, we should be able to, so this is the actual profile that they were trying to upload, and you can see it's 71 kilobytes, which is over that previous limit. So we should be able to upload this one just fine. And you know, I won't, you know, sit around and wait for the thing to cook, but that error on the host side is gone now. And we added a 1 megabyte file size limit because that's what several other MDM solutions have. And doesn't seem like there would need to be a much bigger profile than that. So if we take a look, if I can find it. Of course, now that I'm trying to demo, I can't find the one thing I wanted to show. It's somewhere over here, maybe. No. Okay, well, I'm not going to waste much time trying to track down that file, but basically, if you upload anything above 1 megabyte, it should stop you from doing that. So that's that one. The next one is this guy. So this one, we weren't able to really figure out the root cause necessarily. For some reason, with hosts that are connected to the like identity profile, like accounts from SSO, sometimes we would end up with this enroll reference query parameter that would point at an ID that didn't exist in our database. And so the way that the ingestion of MDM related data was set up, it would try to match on this, and then if it didn't, it would just break. And so you would end up with profile, or you'd end up with a host that's just like stuck in pending when it's trying to verify the MDM settings. So now let's bring this VM over here. You can see here, this excuse me, this config is basically one that I just tinkered with and added a fake enrollment reference to the URL. So if we go ahead and try to enroll, we should be able to see everything work just fine. And also, we should be able to see a log somewhere around here. So now we're just, instead of breaking the ingestion flow, we're just logging and saying, hey, we couldn't find it. Find that IDP ID. So it might take a second here. Okay, you can even see here that this is on verifying now. So where is the log? The log's not that interesting, but basically we would be stuck here on pending otherwise. But now we're not. Yeah, so while that keeps on chugging, we can keep moving on to the next ones. Yeah, this is one that was a really interesting dive into lots of different aspects of the enrollment flow. And I won't be able to demo it because the setup is difficult and it involves a different physical machine and copying a lot of files around. But basically, when a host was attempted to be enrolled, like you would use macOS Migration Assistant to move from one physical machine to another. The Migration Assistant process would copy over all of the fleet related files, of course. And then fleet D would start up on the new machine as expected, but it would overwrite the old machine in fleet. So instead of showing up as an actually new machine, it was showing up as just the old one. And so after a lot of digging, and a big shout out to Roberto for helping me figure this out, we found that there is actually an issue inside of OS Query where it's caching the hardware UUID. And because of that, Fleet D, when it starts up, it refetches all of the like host details, right? So you would expect that we wouldn't see this overwriting. It would just show up as a new machine because it's actually on new hardware. But because of this issue in OS Query, and Migration Assistant included the old OS Query database, this caching was throwing back the old hardware UUID. And so when Fleet D would pull that from OS Query and then check in with Fleet, it would appear to be the same machine. So the fix actually turned out to be really simple. We thought it was going to be pretty complicated. You can see it's a pretty small diff. All we wound up doing is just calling out to OS Query again to get the hardware UUID when we're starting up on the host. But we just use we create a random path in the host and use that as the location of the OS Query database. And then that way we know that we're going to get a brand new, like the actual hardware UUID, not the one cached in the old database. So yeah, this was one of those, like, took a really long time to come to a very simple solution, but it's actually a pretty nice solution. So yeah. And the last one is this other one, which again is not super scintillating, but basically we added some new some new config variables. There's a typo here. For storing carves on S3. Well, it was really for splitting out the S3 storage for software installers. So before, software installers and carves were in the same bucket, but that was causing issues. So we just set it up to where there's two different sets of configuration for S3 for carves and for software installers. So before, this was like Fleet S3 bucket, but now if you want it to be for carves, you would do Fleet S3 carves bucket, and then for software installers, you would do Fleet S3 software installers bucket, and then all the, related config options as well. The old ones still exist for backwards compatibility, but they will basically only be used for carves. The old values will. So if we run this over here, I have created this carves dev bucket. And if we like this, where is it? We should be able to see that this gets populated into the correct place. Oops, with the new environment variable. I don't know why Minio always takes forever to show things the way they're supposed to be, but yeah, here we go. Cool. So you can see this show up in the right place. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Have you not heard the joke that two of the hardest problems in software development is variable naming and cache invalidation? There you go. Minio's not, breaking their cache for you. Alrighty, I've got a couple of bugs to look at. We're going to do some theater of the mind because I don't have demos readily available, but we're going to go over them. This is a lot of the work that Martin did. Can everybody see the screen with the demos? This one's mostly a no-op. It was a lint call out by a community member that Martin took care of. Unable to reinstall Fleet the agent on Windows after unenrolling and removing the agent via API. This was basically an oversight that we had resolved for the Mac OS, or not for Mac OS, for Linux. But now this is covering the Windows side. Essentially, when you send a script to go uninstall Fleet, it of course kills Fleet. So the ending of that script and the status resolution coming back to the server never happens. So of course, if that user ever installed Fleet on this host again, it would initially come up and see that there is a script queued to uninstall Fleet. So it would uninstall Fleet. They would try to turn on Fleet. It was a real bad race case scenario. So this was essentially making it so that the process to finish removing Fleet happens in a sub-process, and we return back that we've successfully completed this process before it actually does it. Then we've got just a gnarly bug where if a script timed out, it would be stuck in the queue and block other scripts from running. So this has been resolved. There have been a couple of 500s that were on the Apple MDM endpoint that were caused by read timeouts upstream. So this is just handling those with a proper 408. Deleting a host causes its script execution activity items details to be inaccessible. This is now a soft delete so that the items are still available after you delete your host. Failed to unlock a laptop was another Linux-based script update. This one was just to handle users with no password, which was an oversight that we had in our unlock script. And then can't download added software is related to the carves issue that we just saw. This was the fact that when we initially released software installers, they were put into the carves bucket, which usually had a 24-hour expiry. So this is now handling the fact that when there's a reference in the database for a software installer, but no actual installer available from your storage location, this is handled gracefully now with an error that says that the software is unavailable. And then on software upload, getting an error, failed to parse multi-part form. This was for slow upload internet connections, trying to upload very large installers. There were multiple different fixes to basically improve the performance and error message when we have problems ingesting large installers. If anybody has any questions over those, please let me know. Otherwise, we can get started with Roberto's.
Hey, yeah, I also have two that are kind of hard to demo, but I want to go over just because two notes. The first one was a cron that was failing to clean up some stuff. So we fixed that, but there is a discussion going on about surfacing cron errors because we are not getting alerted. So if anyone wants to chime in, this is a ticket. And then the other one that took a big chunk of the sprint for me is fleet device controls depend on MDM name. And the real motivation to fix this was to allow migrations without user action. So that this is now possible because we are checking if the host has an active enrollment instead of relying on the MDM name. And we found a fix that like many bugs along the way. Some of the filters were displaying hosts that weren't supposed to be there, stuff like that. So it was like an improvement. That's it for me.
All right, I think I'm next. So try to keep it quick, but there is an important fix that I want to talk to you about. So in our end user migration flow, Apple made some changes recently that are improvements, but also subtly break some things. So what you're seeing now is the current, the pre-existing way that we would migrate users in Mac OS pre-Sonoma days. It would involve telling the users to look in their device notifications for this pop-up to take the next step. And with macOS Sonoma, that step has been removed. In fact, actually, in macOS Sonoma, Apple's improved it a fair bit to where now rather than using a pop-up, there's an actual screen takeover. So here's a demo of what it looks like now. There's no audio, so but you'll see this migrate to Fleet screen pop up, and it will trigger the here shortly. It should trigger the screen takeover. Here we go. And the user can follow that step. It's required to enter their password and migrates to Fleet. So that's what that looks like. And other than that, most of my changes were some bug fixes. So I will just leave you with a couple of haikus to close us out.
All righty. I like not drowning. That's good. Thank you, Sarah. And that's it for the MDM bugs and improvements. Back to you, Luke.
Guiding, not drowning. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, MDM. Great fixes and improvements. I'm excited to get the release out. That's all we have, right? No more items. I have the agenda. We, as everyone probably realizes, the last couple scheduled minor releases have gone out a bit late. We had some big features that were in those releases. We're working hard to get back to the regular release cadence. Release is scheduled on Monday. We are changing some things to help facilitate releases going out a little bit quicker. One of the changes is we're going to automatically create the release candidate on the target release day, which is Monday. And then we're going to unfreeze main right away. So we're not going to have these long-lived 3 weeks of main frozen, which I know is difficult across the org. So that's one thing. 4.5, we had an unscheduled minor release that went out this week because we had a added functionality that we needed to release for a customer. So we couldn't do that as part of a patch per semantic versioning. So we released 4.52, but the scheduled release that we've been demoing today is 4.53. That's scheduled to go out Monday. You'll see that, of course, for everyone on the product groups, the release isn't done until we ship it and we publish it. So please ask your local QA engineer if there's anything you can do to help get the release ready on Monday and out the door. That's it. Does anyone have any final questions or thoughts before we wrap up? All right. Great sprint, manganese. Have a great weekend, and I'll see y'all soon.
Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone. Bye.